Chapter 18, Part 1. The twins still hadn't decided how to spend the money, and they still wouldn't take it to the bank. They had sewn 2 calico pouches to keep it in, which they wore around their necks even when doing their lessons. The pouches came down quite low over their stomachs, and every so often they patted them to make sure the money was still there. Like kangaroos with indigestion, said Maya. But what upset Maya was the way Miss Minton was behaving. She had taken to going off on her own, and when Maya asked her where she was going, she gave answers that weren't answers at all. And had she been packing her trunk? The twins, of course, missed no chance to taunt Maya. Your precious Minty's got a secret, and we know what it is, jeered Beatrice. But we aren't going to tell you, said Gwendolen. Only you needn't think she's going to stay with you. Even so, it wasn't till Minty lost her temper with the twins that Maya realised that something was seriously wrong. They were doing an English exercise in Dr. Foreman's book. Beatrice, can you give me an example of alliteration? Asked Miss Minton. No, I can't, said Beatrice. What about you, Gwendolen? Gwendolen shook her head. I can't either. Miss Minton's corset was troubling her, but she kept her patience. Read what Dr. Bowman said again, Beatrice, at the top of the page. Alliteration is the use of words beginning with the same letter or containing the same letter. She stopped and patted her pouch. I don't know what that means. Miss Minton, who had explained twice, explained again. Suppose you say, in a summer season when soft was the sun. It was at this moment that Mrs. Carter entered the dining room. Well, Miss Minton, she said, how are the girls getting on? It's nearly time to send a report to Dr. Bullman. I hope you have it ready. Miss Minton looked at Beatrice, who was yawning, and at Gwendolen, who was scratching her ear. No, Mrs. Carter, she said, I do not have it ready. What's more, I'm not prepared to send a report unless the twins start to work properly. Ever since the reward came, they've been impossible to teach. I think you'd better write the report yourself. And while Mrs. Carter gobbled with anger, Miss Minton got up from her chair. There will be no more lessons today, girls, she said, and swept out of the room, as though she was a person with rights and not a governess. Maya had been in the dining room fetching more paper, and she heard everything. She could not help being pleased, but she was scared too. What if Mrs. Carter sent Minty away? The next day was Miss Minton's afternoon off. Mrs. Carter tried to stop her going, but Miss Minton said she had business to attend to in Manor House. You'd better be careful, Miss Minton. I've dismissed governesses for less impertinence that you've shown in the last few days. I did not mean it to be impertinent, said Miss Minton, but at lunchtime she was seen getting on the rubber boat bound for the town. Is everything all right, Minty? Maya asked before she left. Everything's fine, said Miss Minton. Or rather it will be. Keep out of the way of the twins till I get back. But she had explained nothing. Supper was never a cheerful meal in the House of Rest, but that day it was like eating in the graveyard. Then, halfway through a meal, Tappy came in with a letter brought by special messenger who had vanished back into the dark. Gonzales, said Mr. Carter in a low voice, and took it into the study. The letter was as bad as Carter had feared. Settlement day was tomorrow. He would meet Carter in his office by the docks. If Carter couldn't pay, Gonzales was going to send in the bailiffs. Bailiffs? Cried Miss Carter, when her husband at last told her the truth of what was happening. Those dreadful people who can take everything away. But they can't. Unfortunately, they can, said Carter. Don't you remember in Littleford? Mr. Carter began to sob. Oh, not again, not again, the disgrace. She gave a sudden shriek. Lady Parsons' portrait, they mustn't have that. I'll hide it first thing in the morning, she said wildly. Mr. Carter gave her a look. That's not worth much, but my collection. The twins, hearing raised voices, came down the corridor. What's the matter? What happened? They wanted to know. Nothing, girls, nothing. It's bedtime. Mrs. Carter looked at the pouches around their necks. Tomorrow, that money goes to the bank, and that's my last word. Once the reward was in the bank, the manager would help her to work on the twins. It was ridiculous that they should keep it all when the family was in such trouble. And don't sleep in those things, she went on. They could throttle you. Maya had gone to her room. She went to light her oil lamp, but she found that it had gone, and only a single candle in an old brass candlestick stood by her head. She went down to the twins' room. As she had expected, she had found that they had borrowed her lamp. It's just for tonight, said Beatrice. We need one each for what we've got to do. Maya was already in bed, trying to read by the light of the single candle, when there was a knock on the door and Tappy came in. She was dressed in her best clothes, but she looked worried. We go to a wedding, a big wedding with dancing and eating. We must go there because it's Furrow's brother, and he's angry if we're not there. It sounds fun, Tappy. I hope you enjoy it, said Maya. Yes, We all go. My sister, Conchita, old Lila too. She not want to go, but she must. Tappy sighed. There'd been a furious row earlier when Lila said she could not go. None of them could go because they had promised to look after Maya, and Furrer said that if they did not go, his brother would start a feud that could last for years. In the end, Lila had given in, and now they were all setting off in the canoe for the long journey upriver to the village, so as to be in time for the celebrations which began at dawn. But you be careful, yes? And Miss Minton, she'd be back soon. Here, it's for you, said Tappy. And Tappy took a bunch of bananas and a mango from her basket and laid them on Maya's bed. It was strange with the Indians gone. No sound came from the huts. They had even taken the little dog. Maya looked at the clock. The last boat should be in soon. She would stay awake and say good-night to Miss Minton. But she must have dozed off. When she looked again, it was nearly 10 o'clock. She hadn't heard anyone come in, but Minty could move very quietly when she chose. Maya got out of bed. The house was silent and dark. She took in her candle and knocked on Miss Minton's door. No reply. She knocked again. Then she pushed open the door and went in. The room was empty. Miss Minton's bed had not been slept in, and there was something else, something that frightened Maya badly. Miss Minton's trunk had gone. Back in her room, Maya told herself not to be silly, but the fear would not go away. Miss Minton's trunk was like, well, it was part of her. Hardly a day passed when she did not pick a book out and read Maya a passage or showed her a picture. If the trunk had gone, then surely it meant the twins were right and Minty had left her. The more she thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Miss Minton being angry with the twins, standing up to Mrs. Carter, going off when she was told not to. Minty no longer cared what the Carters thought of her because she was going away. Not since the news of her parents' death had Maya felt so wretched and alone. She tried to tell herself that Minty would not leave her, but lying there in the darkness she failed. After all, Finn had left her. People did go away. Her parents had done it too. They had gone to Egypt and left her at school. And now Minty. After another hour of tossing and turning, Maya went to the washstand and took 2 aspirins. Then she took a third for good measure, and at last she slept. And she slept deeply.